and welcome into the Orlando Drummer Podcast. This is episode 29. Hope you guys have been well, been staying busy around here, so we've taken a few weeks off recently, but good to be back, man. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. Got a haircut recently.
Hell yeah.
This guy was getting fed up.
How often do you get your haircut?
Well, I think the longest I had gone was 4 months.
Jesus, that's
But
such
I mean,
a long time.
I've gone longer. But I think maybe the shortest window was probably 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, this could really break the bank if I do this every 2 weeks.
Have you ever thought about getting rich enough that you could get a haircut like constantly?
Of course.
Not constantly, but like
once a week.
Like
It'd
every
be
3
great.
days or something. You just
Yeah.
look identical all the time.
You walk in and then they go, oh, he's here. And then they cut your hair.
Yep.
Right? And
Same haircut, just dialed. That would be really cool.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
I just, all the money.
A lot of money for sure.
I did have a friend tell me, like, oh, you should get one every week. And I was like, woo.
Yeah, that adds up a lot, dude. I can't do once a week.
Yeah,
it's too
there's
much
a
money.
reason you're eating top ramen, bro. Like,
Yeah.
Because you're getting your haircut every week.
Probably not worth it. I really try and sync up my haircuts with important video shoots. That's like the number one reason that'll make me get a haircut or not, is like if I'm filming something, you know?
For me, it's like, I don't know, events, I guess.
Yeah,
just
or
like
certain
going
events.
out,
Yeah.
just seeing friends, something like that, where I'm just like, oh, I don't want to look like a ragamuffin, as my mother would say. But yeah.
What we got for Loop of the Week this week, man?
This week, we have quite a snazzy, jazzy loop for us today. I don't think I've ever featured this loop pack before, but it is the Jazz Quartet loop.
Jazz Quartet.
A loop pack, rather.
Yeah.
And it's loop 4, which is 145 BPM.
Yeah, I know that track. I know that one's really fast. Yeah, I had a rough time playing that. That came out in maybe 2019, the Jazz Quartet loop pack. Really like authentic sounding jazz, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And I remember Joe actually brought in a trumpet player and a saxophone player, and then at the time his roommate played trombone, so there's a lot of like weird horns that are actually on there. Really, really strange pack, but I had a rough time playing to that one because I am not like a purist with jazz at all. I can chameleon along with some things just fine, but my experience for playing jazz was all high school jazz band where I didn't read music or anything. I just made stuff up most of the time. But I remember posting a handful of tracks from the Jazz Quartet loop pack like on Instagram. And there were definitely people that were like, you shouldn't put the bass drum there because it's really like, all right, I get it. It's not my thing. So we didn't revisit that again because I wasn't confident enough to play more of them. But anyway, it's a fun pack. This track you're about to hear is very, very quick, like uncomfortably fast, up-tempo swing for me. But anyway, check it out. Jazz Quartet loop pack. Loop 4. Yeah, it's fun, man. Too fast for my blood, man. Can't keep up with that stuff. That and like what else? Like shout music, right? Like gospel shout music is sort of a category of that. Country also has it too, like train beats, those sort of tempos, and then punk. Obviously, punk is the other one that has that sort of tempos. I don't know, man. I feel like your ears have to get acclimated to that 140, 160, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, man, it's just it takes a lot of work for me. Like that never came naturally to me. So I don't know if we have any super fast players in the like high tempo players in the description. Definitely give us some pointers, man. I know I could use them.
Yeah, my favorite was always like jungle trap beats.
Okay.
Where, like JD Beck kind of vibes.
Yeah, busy. He's got such a strange style. You know who I think is closest to his style is actually Sput. I think Sput is like It's very similar in style to JD Beck, not in like the same way every time, but if you pay attention to like how they sprinkle in ghosts in certain ways, like the way they orchestrate around the kit, Sput's like not as busy and wild all the time, but I feel like Sput is probably an influence on JD Beck, more than likely.
Yeah, I would say so.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish I'd have to hear them both again to articulate it better. But
Yeah. Although Sput has more to play with
he does play
on
a bigger
normal
kit.
basis, and
Yeah.
JD Beck is 2 instruments.
Yeah.
At most.
Yeah.
Duct tape on a crash cymbal.
Some
for a
people get away
ride.
with that, man.
And
Yeah.
he can just rip.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, I forgot one other thing, actually. Sorry, I'm a little sweaty today. I'm actually been practicing a lot. I officially booked a drum festival. I'm not going to say the name yet because, things can go wrong. But, flights are booked, so we're looking good for a festival coming up.
Oh.
But I've got to fill an hour set, like an hour-long set.
Oh, man.
Problem is, I don't have a band. So coming up with that many songs is actually really tricky. So, song suggestions would be cool, except I don't think I can do anything copyrighted. So like I can't, don't just name like a pop song or some famous song. I probably can't do that. But if there's any tracks from like smaller independent type artists, Nick DiPiero being a good example, I'm definitely using several tracks from him. Him and I've written songs before, but I'm using some tracks from him. Any artists similar to that, I'd be really interested in some recommendations to find some unlicensed tracks to use for this drum festival, or any loops. If there's any particular loops in the library that you would want to hear in like a performance setting. Joe and I have done this before. We actually we alter the structure of the loops to make them more like a song. So we write a bridge to it and give it like a verse, chorus sort of deal. So we could do that with one of the loops as well. I know Maple Sugar is one I'll be playing there for sure. But anyway, really exciting. More news coming for sure. Definitely in the next couple weeks, I'll have some dates and locations and stuff for you. But it's actually my first drum festival. I've done clinics, master classes, played hundreds of shows, like all of these different things. But I'm like, man, I've never even been to a drum festival before. Have you ever heard of one around here, like just a drum festival?
I think they're very rare.
Rare,
I think
right?
it's easier, obviously, to get like a music festival. I can't think of any that were around here.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
I don't know.
Weird.
That's
Anyway,
a hard one.
I'm excited, really excited.
Yeah,
And if you got some
little-
independent artists who have unlicensed music that I could potentially use for that, I'm building up some of the songs now. So that'll be really cool. More info on that soon.
Little teaser.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're done talking about that. Now we'll talk about something else. It's the way.
It seems like you know exactly how podcasts work, man. You really do. You get it. You get it, bro.
What's funny is I really don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts. I do listen to one in particular. I won't name it, but it's just unscripted and like dudes hanging out.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the more entertaining ways to listen to a podcast is no plan.
Yeah, they definitely can flow that way, but on my other on All In with Adam, which by the way, if you guys wonder what set he's sitting at, that's for All In with Adam. It's my other podcast, not drums at all. It is, dude, you learn the hard way. It's really hard to sit down with no structure, no topic, and like improvise for an hour. I definitely tried that a handful of times and was not happy with how it turned out. It's hard, man.
I think the only way that it's easy, quote unquote easy, or it seems easy, if it's just comedy focused. Because if it's any serious topic, then you lose people if there's
for
no
sure
structure.
You need to have some kind of outline.
Yeah.
Theo Vaughn is probably my favorite for the 100% improvised, like 90-minute podcast. No plan, just like sits down and his first thought of the day, like you get to hear on the pod, like that. And it's somehow entertaining for 90 minutes. Like, but man, what a special skill. It's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
This is a lot easier because we've got not only segments, but like, it's all within the domain of drums or musicianship or anything in that category. So it's like you have a direction for everything, but yeah, it gets a lot trickier when you open up the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll move on to a segmented portion of this podcast known as Accent or Ghost.
Yeah.
Which is an oldie but a goodie. This is a piece where we get Adam's view on many aspects of the drumming industry, and at the end we'll get an approval in the form of an accent or a disapproval in the form of a ghost.
Okay.
Would you be willing to accent or ghost bamboo drums?
Bamboo.
So, shell pack made out of bamboo, or bamboo used as a material to make drums out of.
See, I'm not even sure if anyone has. Well, did they make any instruments? What happens if we Google bamboo instruments? Like woodwind? Is that? They make any like flutes?
I mean, assuming that it's made out of wood, or it's an instrument that is made out of wood, if you substituted bamboo for it, you could make it. There are drums that are made out of bamboo.
Xylophones, marimbas. I'm just reading a Google list here. Some kind of chimes, and then it says guitars, ukuleles, violins, but that's further down the list. Weird. So why would they not make shells out of it? What's the characteristics of bamboo?
Well, D-Drum made a bamboo snare drum.
Did they really?
I wonder if DW, who specializes in exotic woods, made a bamboo drum. Probably other custom companies, smaller companies that were just like, we've got small thin slats and make sort of like a stave drum kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bunch of glue and epoxy. Maybe the same thing.
So I'm reading that bamboo is super durable, which I guess I knew that.
Yeah.
But it says it's pretty dense. So you might run into the problem where with drums, it's just not enough tone and too much aggression and bite. And I learned some of this from talking with Sal, who makes my signature drum, which is made out of youre. Youre is a super, super dense hardwood from Australia. It's a lot more dense than any other wood you might think of. So like oak and birch and some of those really snappy, like dried out hardwoods that we use for shells. It's way harder than that. And what happens, he's told me this before, when you make a tom out of a wood that's that dense, it's just like all attack with no tone underneath it. So my guess is that a bamboo drum would actually sound like that it would be way too snappy and not have a lot of like musical sing to it. That would be my guess. So I think I'll have to not go to war with reality on this one. I'm going to ghost it. I say there's a reason nobody has made bamboo drum shells before. Probably because it doesn't sound very good. But if you were going on tour and you couldn't afford cases, you might want some really tough drum shells.
Well, I mean, at that rate, you're looking at steel or aluminum.
Yeah, that's probably smarter. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if there's a material and you can make a drum out of it, and we've talked about several different drums, like 3D printed drums and cardboard drums and stuff like that. You know, it's possible that you could make it for sure. Will it sound as good as most products out there? Maybe. You just kind of have to make it to find out.
You would have to make it.
Yeah.
I did read 3 more interesting little fun facts that Google spit out here. One says bamboo shrinks a lot more than most other comparable woods. So like it shrinks and what's the word? Like it could swell. So depending on the humidity, it could like
contract.
Which would make it really unreliable for tuning.
God,
swelling and shrinkage can happen with bamboo, and it is super susceptible to fungus, so it can grow mold.
Ugh.
Interesting.
Oh, moldy drums.
Yeah, moldy kit. That's gross. All right, so we're ghosting it. No bamboo kits. Probably not.
That's a very
that's a strong ghost. Come on, that's a strong
objective ghost. Is that we used science today.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn, that's I can't argue with that. That makes so much sense. We're gonna accent our ghost side snares.
Side snares. I mean, I've played them before or put them on the kit, but I never leave them on there. You always just end up putting a drink on it and a phone, and your wallet, and
laptop,
laptop. Exactly. It just like
cigarette,
it's just
everything.
It just collects all your stuff is what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Where I really think you could use that is in. It sounds weird, but specifically like a pop band, because pop snare drums there's like 10 different sounds, right? Like you could have a pop song where you need like a really bitey, cracky, high attack, high tuned snare drum. And then you could also have one, if it's at all in like an 80s style, where you need that fat, gushy, warm, like mahogany, deep, rich snare drum. And realistically, you're not going to switch snare drums in the middle of a set for almost any gig you ever have. It's just not going to happen. So that's really where I think you would have like the big fat snare drum, like that big gushy one. You'd have that over to the left for a certain song within the set, and then probably a more like normal tune snare in the center. So, I mean, I would give it the accent. Like functionally, I think it's cool to have two snare sounds, but man, in my whole career, I have never really found a reason where I like had to have that. It just never happens. It's like a cool thought because I have multiple cool snare drums, and it would be sick to have them together, but it never pans out. I can't like amend my playing to even think about it. It just ends up sitting there, and then when I do remember, like, oh, I got that snare. Oh, it's got my phone on it, and then you'll end up smashing your phone. So. Oof. Never made it happen. Yeah, I'm gonna have to ghost it for me.
Oh,
personally.
No, even if you played like a reggae set and you needed that just like high.
Oh, like a piccolo. Yeah, that's the other way to do it.
Yeah, not necessarily two snares that are the same size. Like a popcorn snare would be kind of the same thing.
Popcorn snare.
That's the way I've.
Is there
like
any
10x5s?
Is there any genre of music that depends on the popcorn snare? Is that a thing? Oh wow, this is actually hilarious. Pause on the snares really quick. I just got an email to
from DW Drums.
From Manscaped for this podcast, for Orlando Drummer Podcast.
That is
which they sponsor
hilarious.
Like so many they're massive in the podcast world.
Can we sidebar real quick? Do you use a Philips Norelco one blade?
No, I use straight razor.
You're a maniac, but if you ever decide to become sane, you should get a Philips Norelco one blade. Because
you like that?
They're fucking amazing.
The one blade. Now, let's be honest. This is like 98% men listening to this, so we can definitely talk about shaving for a second.
Women can shave.
Women can shave. Well.
They do.
Yeah, they might have shaved your face too.
They do probably more frequently than men.
So my barber actually told me this, that the single blades are way better for your skin because the 5, 6, 7, 4,000 blades that they started doing, basically it'll shave off the hair, but then it will continue to scrape the skin after it, and it'll actually cut off the tip of like the pore. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right.
It's just abrasive to the skin when you have blades lined up in a row.
Sure. Anyway, really funny. That's a hard pass for me. I promise I will not try to sell you shaving products on this podcast. Oh my God. This is funny. Anyway, so there's
it's just immediately. You don't even need to send a reply to the email.
No.
Just, we saw in the last podcast.
Well, to be totally honest, like if we're talking like sponsors, right? Like just the concept of that, like you would align yourself with a brand to help them sell things, and then they help you in some other way, right? Like we've already got those in the way of, Meinl and Earthworks and Evans and Meinl Sticks and Clear Tune, and like we're aligned with many companies who we have no problem telling you guys about.
Yeah.
But I don't ever want it to work this way, where it's just like, here's how many downloads we get, here's how much money we get. Yeah. Not into it for a drum podcast.
I mean, key differences between endorsements and sponsorships, right? It's just I think and what you said a long time ago, an endorsement was like a much stronger, longer relationship than a sponsorship. Because
definitely
sponsorships you can just kick to the curb and be like, fuck off, I got a better one.
For sure. The word endorsement typically does imply that you've got some kind of relationship with them that's a lot deeper than just, because I have no doubt if I were to follow up with this email, I'm not going to like speak to anybody. They just want some podcast download statistics. They would probably send me like some Manscaped little package or whatever, and then you get a promo code to tell people and links to put in a description, and that's it. That's all you ever do, as opposed to ClearTune, where we've been inside their their actual offices in their factory and see how they make things. It's a lot different. But anyway, well, that was a fun detour to take momentarily.
Man.
We got anything else for accent or ghost?
I do. I have one more on the same vein as side snares. What do you think about left side floor toms or right side floor toms if you're left-handed drummer?
You know who comes to mind is Alex Rudinger. Some of those like
Rudy,
like the symmetry players. That comes to mind.
Anoop Sastry.
He does it too.
Yeah. I love it. I think it's cool. As soon as I figured that out, I was like, ooh,
It is kind of cool. Yeah, I think the idea of building, like, I was going to do it. There's no reason to do it. But, like, if you were building, like tom sounds, doom, 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 doing that, like, opened up wide is a weird vibe. I don't know why, because for me, I'm always used you have to go all the way to the right to get to both of my floor toms. That sounds fun, but I don't know. I feel like you could come up with some stuff, but you'd really have to commit. I think you'd have to commit to get used to having a floor tom there, and that, for me, that feels like it would take 6 months or a year.
Maybe.
Before you remember that it was even there. Like, that's how long I haven't changed my setup, so it's intimidating to add that.
I think it would depend, too, on, like, what you're playing, what you're writing. And it's like, is it easier for me to take my left hand and go down to a floor tom for this fill than it is for me to take my left hand for this fill because of the orchestration and go all the way over there?
Yeah.
Like, it's much quicker to do that, and it sounds cooler when it's quicker.
You know, another one that comes to mind, Travis Orban.
Yeah. Oh, man. You want to talk about an OG YouTube drummer?
OG YouTube drummer.
Travis Orban was one of the first drummers I ever watched on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, one of the first maybe like 2 or 3.
I'm sorry to have fucked you up like that. That's a
man.
He's a serious drummer to watch on YouTube.
Oh, my God. And, like, through all the years of watching him play, it's just like, the dude, I think, honestly, he influenced a lot of people who play in a symmetrical fashion.
Set. Yeah.
Oh,
absolutely he did. Yeah. He's so good too, man.
Oh my God.
So good. And what's the word? I don't know, like a drummer's drummer, right? Like particularly nerdy, man. He's got 8-minute videos of him just sight reading these insanely complicated parts, all like in high level metal, ultra fast, crazy independence, just a insane player, man. Insane player.
You want him to play something, send him something, and he'll play to it. And it's just like, oh my God, he'll kill it.
He's outrageous.
Anyway, accent or ghost left side floor toms?
I'll give it the accent because of all the many weird gear suggestions or gear ideas that we might cover in this segment. That one actually sounds kind of cool. Like, I bet I would like that if I actually committed to it more than a side snare for some reason. So I'll give it the accent. Yeah. And especially, you see it pulled off, like Rudy and Anoop and Orban. Like, we came up with 3 sick drummers who do it immediately. Yeah. So clearly, it worked for some people. Yeah, I'll give it the accent.
All right, cool. Well, that'll do it for accent or ghost. We'll move us on into Swap Study Shed.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you know what Swap Study Shed is, good for you. But if you don't know what it is, for this piece, I'll give Adam 3 drummers. He has to choose which one he would swap gigs with, which one he would take a lesson from, or which one he would hang out and shed with. First trio up today, we have Mark Giuliana, or Giuliana, I don't know, Adam Marcello.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And Craig Reynolds. Craigie.
Oh, man. Okay, so let's see. Oh, this is a really tricky one. So for those that let's just go through these 3 drummers. Mark Giuliana, I believe his gig right now is just the Mark Giuliana quartet or band. Like, it's his own little project that he has, right?
I am the master of my own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's that good, but unbelievably like high level jazz with a weird sprinkle of like fusion drum and bass in there, but super unique player with a really specific kind of gig. Adam Marcello is Katy Perry's drummer, so that's the arena world is where you're at there. But he's also her musical director, so that's a very it's a big
plate
job.
Of responsibility.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's almost like, do you really want to sit in for a day like doing that?
Yeah.
And then Craig Reynolds is just a drunk moron, basically.
Nice. Shout out Craig.
What's up, Craig? I love you, buddy. Craig is a muscular metal drummer. Let's describe him that way.
Yeah.
British gentleman. No, I love Craig. He's an awesome guy.
Craig is so cool.
Awesome guy. But also, he's in Straight from the Path, that's a whole vibe in of itself. You ever been to any of those shows?
Oh, yeah.
It's a like high aggression, high intensity kind of performance. So let's see. I think I'm gonna hang out with Craig because I know him. He's my buddy. Good dude. Okay, so Craig would be in that case the shed, right? We'll hang out with Craig. And then I think I want to study with Mark. His playing is definitely the highest level of these 3 guys. That's no offense to, Adam Marcello or Craig Reynolds. Mark Giuliana is just kind of ridiculous. So a lesson with him would be interesting. I don't know what he studies, right? Like, what kind of books is Mark Giuliana cracking open?
I don't know. He seems like one of those drummers where, like, there's no warning to what he could possibly tell you because he's not known to be a teacher. Like, he's not an instructor.
Has he ever released any educational stuff? I don't think so.
Possibly, but maybe more on the lines of just like, here's a trick you can do, not like a concept that'll blow your mind kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember I actually got to ask him a couple questions for the, what was it, VF Jams in like 2018 or something. There was a whole bunch of, Aaron Spears was there, and Benny was there, and it was Kaz, and Mark Giuliano was there. And I asked him something along the lines of like, what do you get jealous of? Like when you see somebody who has some ability that you don't have, like for example, like speed metal drummers who have this like unbelievable amount of speed. Like any part of you that gets jealous of that, or like what do you see out there that you wish you could do better? And his answer was feel. It was like he cited like several old school jazz drummers that have a feel where he's like, I get jealous of like their touch, that I can't mimic how they actually sound, which I thought was a really cool, kind of a creative answer. That's a good thing to be jealous of, the thing that you definitely can't have, which is somebody's feel and touch, right?
That's
like,
funny.
oh yeah, you never get that, So I thought that was a cool answer. So it would be great to take a lesson from him. And then the gig, I think I'll go in. I'll take the Adam Marcello gig.
Damn.
Though that's intimidating.
You got to deal with everybody in the band there, though. I mean,
yeah.
You now become,
I'm sure he works directly with Katy Perry all the time. You'd have to if you're the MD, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big responsibility. I'm sure he's paid very well for that, but that's a hell of a job.
Yeah. We could spit some numbers. They're probably all accurate.
Yeah, probably.
But damn. Okay, cool. That's more along the lines of what I would do too. So that's awesome. All right, I got another trio up for you here.
Okay.
Vinny Colaiuta. Mr. Dave Weckl.
Good Lord.
Or Questlove.
So, Vinny, Dave W., and old Quest. So, Quest is a weird one because he, his gig is like with the Roots, but more so it's the Tonight Show, right?
Yeah.
That's what you would be doing. Day in the life of Questlove is the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder exactly how that kind of gig goes. I'm sure there would be some surprises in there. And we were talking about this briefly before, but like, those late night shows are scripted start to finish, everything. Even the little like, kitschy little improv sessions are not really improvised at all. It's very, very structured. And so you wonder if there's some like monotony in that job where it's a little more like the idea that you would have creative freedom going to work is like kind of laughable in that environment. Like, I don't think that's actually how that gig works at all. I think it's way more, it's as close to like working for a corporation as you could probably get within the music industry, right? I mean, you are working for a massive conglomerate, So I don't know. I think there might be parts of that job that are not as cool or as fun as you think, but still a legendary position to hold for any amount of time. Like, I would still want to do a day in the life and really understand how that gig works,
Yeah, I mean, like what Max Weinberg did the Conan show with him for years and years.
And they featured him too. They gave him a tremendous amount of
drummer
attention, right?
Well, there were like points where it was just like, Max is out and we're all sad.
Yeah.
He's with Bruce Springsteen. Like, that's a dope gig. So when you're not doing the Tonight Show and you can just leave to go on tour, that'd be cool.
I
don't know if Questlove does that necessarily. But yeah, so when you got to think too, like, are you live in New York? You go to 30 Rock every day.
Yeah, I could not live in New York.
You get a lot of people, man. And then you got like regular schedule for the most part, and then the money has to be probably pretty good.
I'm sure it's killer. Yeah. So I don't know. I think I would have to swap gigs with Questlove just to see what that experience is like. That would be very interesting, even if you didn't want to do that forever. And then you got Dave Weckl and Vinny. I'm going to hang out with Vinny. That's going to be Shed. Yeah, I'm going to hang out with Vinny. I met him briefly in passing at the Roland event when they released the TD-17. This was like 2019, I think. Who else was there? Luke Holland was there. Casey Cooper was there. Handful of people. It was a really, really cool event that Roland put on. And Vinny was like the weird like surprise guest where like nobody knew he was going to be there. He just like showed up and jammed for like an hour on an e-kit. It was really cool. There was only like 100 people there. It was pretty crazy. I got to like meet him briefly, but he seems like a cool old weird guy that happens to be like freakishly talented, like one of the best drummers in the world. I would just want to hang out with him. And then I would definitely study with Dave Weckl. That guy would mess you up, man. He's just unbelievably like what's the word? I mean, skilled, obviously, but like he's clearly a studier, not just like natural freakish ability. A little bit more of like, oh, you earned this because you're super passionate about the study of rhythm. He strikes me that way.
Solid is a very good word, I think.
Yeah.
You know, just very down the nose, straight shooter.
Yeah.
Knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
No messing about.
Absolutely. Cool. That's a good one, man.
Cool. All right. Well, that'll do it for Swap Study Shit. So it'll move us on into Q&A.
Q&A.
Yep. I got a question here from Andrew Warren Drums.
Okay. Andrew Warren. He's been a member of the site for a while, actually.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And then you have a question here. What made you finally leave a 9-to-5 job and pursue music full time?
So my last real job was Sam Ash. I've talked about that a few times on this podcast, working at old Sam Ash. I really lived like just like a mile from that same store. And, you know, that was my last real job. And I don't know if things are different there now, but I feel like it's been 10 years at least. So I can definitely tell this story now. But the way they had it set up there was, you know, and I think Guitar Center is honestly the same way. A lot of music stores have this model, and I don't like this model, where you make minimum wage. By that I mean like $7 or $8 an hour is very, very low. Your paychecks are like a couple $100 a week. It's nothing, but you are like a commissioned salesperson. So the more gear you sell, you end up getting like bonuses on your paychecks. And a lot of people actually made great money doing that, depending on what shifts you work, and if somebody came in and bought the $10,000 drum set or the $10,000 guitar. You know, some weeks that didn't happen, but the way, you know, I actually started teaching there. And so I taught in these back little lesson rooms of this music store. And I remember I had racked up like 10 or 15 students in the first month. Because I had a little bit of like YouTube traffic at the time, not much at all, like a few thousand subscribers. But through that, and then I was also teaching privately, I ended up bringing in like a good amount of students, like a dozen students into this store. And then what I had found out was the way that they rang up your lessons was as though you had sold someone a lesson, not directly, but it was like you sold them a piece of gear. Right? So in order to, you ever heard the phrase break your base? You have to sell enough gear in order to get paid. You don't just get paid. You don't just get paid off of every single piece of gear that you sell. You have to sell, let's say, $10,000 worth of gear per week. That's your base. And once you break that threshold, then you start making money what you sell beyond that. And so what I had found out was, and nobody told me this, that giving a lesson was no different than selling someone a product. And because I did not give enough lessons to break my base, I got paid nothing for having like 15 students. Yeah, nothing. Because I didn't actually, you know, I didn't sell enough gear on the floor combined with the lessons that I gave to break my base. Jeez. And so, yeah, after I was there for several months, but the first month that I gave 15 lessons per week for 4 weeks in a row and did not get paid, I said, I'm out. I'm not doing this anymore. And I said, I will take the risk and go teach on my own full time. So I shamelessly, you know, told like all of these students, like, hey, I'm not teaching here anymore. Like, I don't like how this works at all. Like, I have not been paid for any of these lessons. And so a handful of them actually came with me, and then I went full force teaching full time. So that kind of experience was the one that gave me the desire to have control over the entire lesson business. I still wanted to do the same thing. I still wanted to teach full time. It was just really intimidating to try and book all of these students on my own. Like, where do I teach them? Do I go to their house? How do I manage this if I have students all over the city? And that definitely took a few years to figure out until I had a full roster and had like a comfortable amount of money coming in where that was my full-time gig. But honestly, that experience at that music store was the thing that made me say, like, I don't think I want a boss anymore. And then went full-time teaching, and then a few years after that, full-time online. So Yeah, and that's not to throw any music store under the bus. It's more of like a criticism of that kind of system. Like that
pay structure
sucks.
is shitty.
Yeah, that's a really bad way to do it. Yeah. Not all commission sales jobs are bad, but sometimes those setups can go really wrong and just screw people over, and that's kind of what happened to me. So yeah, that's the truthful answer as to why I left the real workforce and went independent.
There you go. Well, I hope your question was answered,
yeah,
Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
Next question from Donovan J. Kelly. What is your all-time favorite snare head and tuning?
Ooh, that's pretty easy. The UV2 cranked pretty high, like medium high, not like absurd. But the UV2 is one of those heads, man. I don't know. It's a lot like the EMAD, where even Remo people will tell you that the EMAD is sick. The UV2 is kind of like that. Like if you say you don't like it, I just don't believe you. Like I think you're doing like a brand loyalty kind of thing. I think that's what happens more often than not. The UV2 is seriously, it's one of the like serious home run heads that Evans has put out. And I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on this podcast, but the way I see Evans and Remo, there are other head companies, but really it's always between Evans and Remo. And Remo is like far more specialized. They have like triple the amount of drum heads, like the SKUs of drum heads. They have like triple the amount that Evans does. But Evans tends to make what I describe as like the Honda Civics of drum heads. Like they just kind of work for everything, and they don't make that many of them. I think Evans makes like 15 heads, something like that, like around that amount, like under 20 heads, where Remo has like 50 or 60. But, Remos tend to be far more like specialized kind of heads, where I think if you want the multi-purpose head that's going to sound good the first time you put it on, probably last a touch longer, and just be a little bit more predictable, I think that's where Evans as a brand really shines. And the UV2 is like, it's the epitome of that. Like it works for every single genre. It sounds so good. They're weirdly durable, like so durable that it makes me wonder sometimes if Evans has lost money, because how often do you have to replace them? That definitely it changes if you get a UV2. Like I imagine there are some people who used to change their heads every 2 months, but now they change them every 4 months because the heads actually last that much longer. I don't know. A weird example though, I remember when I was young, huge into skateboarding when I was a kid, and there was a skateboarder named Eric Costa. Remember Eric Costa? You might be too young for Eric Costa.
I think I am.
Okay.
I'm going to admit that.
Very, very, he was in like the original Tony Hawk games. Eric Costa's probably in his 40s now, but he had a shoe called the K2, and the K2 lasted so unbelievably long when you were skateboarding, right? Because you do all these tricks and the grip tape rips your shoes up. They lasted so long that the shoe got discontinued because people were able to skate on the same pair of shoes for like a year plus, where normally you're buying a pair of shoes like every couple of months. And the shoe was like not around anymore because it was so durable, we lose money. So there's a part of me that seriously wonders that with the UV2s. Like they're that durable. I kind of wonder if Evans was like, shit, we should have made it not last quite as long. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, anyway, it's a sick head. I love the UV2. That's got to be top for me as far as like reliability, tunability, sound, durability. So yeah, medium high UV2. That's my answer.
We go. Cool. Thank you, Donovan, for your question. Next question from Josh in Greenbrier. Is it odd that I hate playing with a click? I feel like when I do, I'm playing to that instead of music.
That's a great question. It is not odd. No, it's not weird at all that you would dislike playing with the click. But I will say that it does get easier. Like the discomfort that you have now, it doesn't last. It's more like that's more like a phase than anything else. And one thing that you'll hear people say, anybody who's played with the click long enough, they all tell you that it eventually disappears, that you don't actually have to listen to that click all the time. But right now, you do, and that part is really annoying. I remember that feeling for sure. So there are some alternative things that you can do if a click is really driving you crazy. One of them is honestly practice loops. Like that's one of the reasons that practice loops exist, that we actually made a whole library of practice loops, is because it's a really powerful resource for drummers who don't want to practice to a metronome all the time. So it's still a fixed tempo, right? It functions the same way as a metronome, but it's like this open environment where you can actually work on something. So if you were working on, let's just say, a rudiment, you're working on your paradiddles around 80 BPM, there is no actual difference between playing at 80 BPM against a song versus 80 BPM against a metronome. You're still using, let's just call it a computer or a digitized sound that is perfect, and that's your fixed reference point as you're actually practicing. It's just a lot easier to listen to, right? That's the big difference between a practice loop and a metronome, or any version of a loop as well. So that's one thing you can do to try to make it a little bit more interesting. Another thing that I would do is toy around with the mix. So if you've got a song, let's just say for a band that you're in, and you want to put a click behind it, I would try mixing that click like a little bit higher in the mix, a little bit lower in the mix, and see if you can find a sweet spot where it's not so prominent, because I've definitely had bad mixes where all you hear is the metronome, and it's just like it's screaming at you and you can't get into the music. It kind of sounds like that's what you're going through. So you can definitely toy around with that mix, and I've done this for different recordings over the years where I need like a certain amount of the song, but sometimes this has even happened too. There will be parts of songs where you automate the volume of the click. So like in the bridge, when the guitars get real spacey, it's super easy to lose time. So in that section, I'll actually automate the volume of the click. I'll do this in like Logic or GarageBand, where the click is louder for certain moments, because that you find out that moment is where you're more likely to lose the click. So that's a little bit higher level of a way to do it. But if you've got specific, if you're playing songs at church, if you're in a cover band, or if you're doing original stuff and you have the ability to sort of mess with those tracks, definitely try automating the click, the volume of the click throughout the song. That might actually make it a lot more listenable, because there's sometimes where you just barely need it, right? Like the guitars are chunky enough, the bass is attacky enough that you can really just go without the click for the performance. And then there's other times, again, when the guitars swell up and it's super ambient, you kind of want that screaming beep in your ear to make sure you can kind of like hang on to where time is. But yeah, so those are some tools and some options, man. Hopefully that helps.
Cool. Thank you, Josh, in a town called Greenbrier, for your question. That's a beautiful answer. A question from Zelmar, or Zelmar. He's probably
Triple Z.
Sleeping when he made his username. So I'm working on the intermediate groove lessons on your site. I was wondering, how much time should I invest on each lesson? I'm not in a band at the moment, so I have no rush to get stuff down to improve myself, but I'm not sure when it's time to move on to the next topic/lesson.
Yeah, that's a good question for sure. How do you know when you're done practicing anything, right? And obviously you're on the site, intermediate groove lesson, so thank you, brother, and welcome. Okay, so the problem with answering this question is that the answer changes for every person. Like you're the most qualified person to answer this question, like how do you know when you're done? But it does, while it does change from person to person, there's probably a little bit more of a concrete answer I could give you. So you want to have some kind of standard, and here's my favorite standard that I've ever heard for how to know when you're done practicing something. If the world was ending, like world is completely ending, and you are responsible for creating the reference for a certain thing. So let's just take a basic rock beat. That's an easy example. Basic rock beat. Everyone's going to die. Nobody knows what this sounds like, and you have to record the basic rock beat for human history to reference from this point forward.
Such an extreme example.
Super extreme.
But think on your toes, right? Is your point.
Well, it's like if you could be the example for other people to learn from, that's probably good enough. That's really a better way to say it.
Yeah.
And there's another way to say this too. If you can teach it, if you can fully explain this to someone else, and you could play an example of that is not incorrect, right? That should be good enough to move on. Now, that doesn't mean that you should never revisit things. It doesn't mean that the moment you're able to explain a groove and play it through once, you're done. That's definitely not the case. But it's a good marker where you can sort of start to expand into other territories once you're able to like fully explain, articulate, and successfully play something, so that someone else could learn it from you. That's probably the best example. It's pretty extreme to say you would have to be like the example for the rest of like human history to go over.
Yeah.
But if you really want the answer, like when are you done? Like done? When you can teach it to somebody, right? I think that's the best answer. When you can show it to someone, you know. The other way to do it is to set your own personal goals, and normally that's going to be related to tempo. So like when you can play this at 85 BPM, that's when you're done. But the catch is that you can move those goalposts all over the place. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be 80 BPM. Maybe for you, a better goal would be 95 BPM or 120 BPM. That's going to change depending on how hard you want to make this on yourself, right? Now, in the lesson pack that you're working in, the intermediate groove pack, I'm pretty sure there are goal tempos at the end of every lesson. And that's sort of where I say, or at least in those packs, it's my recommendation that like if you can play it here, you're probably good. Can you take it faster? Of course you can. You always can. But some things it's just not worth your time. So a lot of times it's good to just pick that realistic tempo, whatever that might be, depending on the groove or the fill, the rudiment, the thing that you're working on, and say, when I get to this point where I can successfully play something without messing up at this tempo, then I'll walk away from this, leave it alone for a little while, and then revisit it in a few months or years or, you know, whatever you got going on. So hopefully that helps answer your question, man. That's a good one.
All right, so to close out the podcast, I got a question for you. Okay. Some I've been thinking about lately. Do you think that there's a conceptual difference between counting and thinking in even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, versus counting and thinking in odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9?
That's really tricky. That's tricky. So let's go like the nerdy math answer.
Okay.
It's easier to divide with even numbers, right? Just like an objective math fact, right? Like division is a lot easier with evens. Like if you were going to teach division to a 10-year-old kid, like you would not start with 13s and 5s and 7. Like you're gonna mess them up. Like that's way harder to do. You're definitely gonna start 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. You're definitely gonna stick in that world. But I don't know. I'm trying to figure out if there's a difference. There's definitely a difference in sound, but do odd note groupings, do they sound odd, like inherently? Is that what that word? I know we say odd numbers, but are we also saying that they sound peculiar compared to even numbers?
I don't think that's how the English language influenced math. But,
yes. But would you? Is it safe to say that 3s, 5s, and 7s sound peculiar compared to 2s, 4s, and 6s?
Ga-da-da.
Yeah, when you put it that way.
Which one was more? I mean,
well, it's out of context, right? Yeah. There's not like a tempo that's fixed to it, but it also gets into like sociological construction, right? Is there a natural, innate type of mathematics in music that sends us down these certain directions, or can you construct music from its core? Like there's no nature to it. It's just what culture has given you. So in our culture, in Western culture, for sure, 4/4 is what. But like, if we go back and we restarted the experiment, like, and said there's no music, start over, and somebody just was like, I don't know, what about 9? Like, do you think that there's versions of reality, versions of culture where 4 always sounds weird, or is there something like innate in the mathematics that makes 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 14, 16 like the easiest, right?
This is like this is turning into like a Veritasium video where it's just like, did you want to learn about math today? It's like, I didn't know.
Honestly, this is like natural law versus social constructionism is what it is. Like, do we make the rules or do we uncover the rules?
Ooh,
that's the question. Yeah, this is a whole philosophical wormhole. We're not going to have time.
Well, no, I mean, like, we don't have time, but we do. This is the fact. I'm going to err on its natural that we like even more than odd.
Yeah.
But there's a mathematical explanation that I cannot prove, but I feel like that's what I'll go with.
Yeah, well, it's easy for two Westerners to be like, I think Western music is probably
the
most
I mean, like,
it's so easy to say,
of course
right?
I'm going to say that, but no, I really do think, like, when it comes down to just, like, it's easier to divide, like, maybe there is a quicker brain synapsis when it comes to even numbers. Maybe it does make sense.
You could make that mathematical argument. Yeah. Goodness. Well, sorry, we're going to dump you guys off on a kind of an absurd cliffhanger today.
I mean, if you want to talk about math in the comments, go ahead.
Yeah. I would love to hear some opinions on this specifically. Like, is there a version of culture where if we ran this experiment back, we could come up with completely different numbers that function as the basis for all rhythm that are not 2, 4, 6, and 8? Like, could we make those foreign in theory? That's the question.
Well, I don't know. What's like the... What do we get out of answering this question? Nothing, really.
More questions.
Which numbers are better?
Welcome. That's literally what we're talking about. Which numbers are better? That's the name of this episode.
I mean, all right. So dial back. Here, we'll try and wrap this up quickly, but dial back. One question I had in mind was when you were learning fills, a lot of them were probably based out of like 4s and 8s, right?
Yes.
Sure. Right? When did you just go, I want to make it at a 7? I want to play fills that are 7 to end right on the 1.
My honest answer is when Yost Nichols said try 3, 5s, and 7s. I was like, oh, damn. Just trying to do like,
whoa!
Yeah. Older concept than me, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah, that's my real answer to that question was like, I saw Yost Nichols using 3s, 5s, and 7s. He mentioned them once. I was like, so there's other ways to count to 16. Like,
there's 3 more numbers?
Yeah. Weird, right?
But, yeah. I mean, as soon as you open, I think it's just more so you open up a new window and it's just more numbers that you can count.
More numbers. More numbers.
It's a dumb answer.
We signed up for the right game.
My God.
More numbers.
All right. Well, if there's any mathematicians out there that are into music, please give us an answer.
Please school us. We're dummies.
Yeah. But
we're trying.
I don't know. And you got anything else?
That's it, man. That's all I got.
All right. Cool. All right.
Awesome. Thank you for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. This has been episode 29 of the Orlando Drummer Podcast. Remember to use code ODPC. Save 25% on your first 2 months of online drum school. Link is in the description of this podcast. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you next week.
Word.
Bye.